afternoon. Welcome back. Welcome back. To Circling the Elements, the state of hip hop and rap. And I'd like to welcome you to our Straight Outta Compton movie. I'm sorry. Our Straight Outta Compton panel discussion. On this past Wednesday, we actually had a movie screening for Straight Outta Compton, where we had several students to come in and view the film. And they decided that they wanted to have a panel discussion on the movie as well. So we have a few questions that we're going to ask the panel. I also passed out some blue pieces of paper to the audience. If you have any questions at this time that you would like the panel to answer, you can go ahead and write those down. We will take them up during the discussion. All right. Before we get started, we're going to ask our panel to introduce themselves. We want them to try to limit that to about 30 seconds each, and then we'll get started with the questioning.
I'm Andre Stefan.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Brantley, Mass Communications major, radio personality on Real 92.7 here on campus, and I make short films as well, and I make music.
Hello, everyone. My name is Janae Kaysen. I am a graduating computer science major, and I'm also a graphic designer, and I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian Hunt. I'm a senior psychology major.
Thank you. Very short.
My name is Desiree West, and I'm a 21-year-old junior supply chain logistics management major.
How y'all doing this afternoon? My name is Khalil Morris. I'm a 21-year-old senior psychology major here at Albany State.
Hello everyone, my name is Autumn Sims. I'm a 22-year-old middle grades education major.
And I am Bernard Goins, the coordinator of fraternity and sorority life here at Albany State University, and I'll be your moderator. All right, we're going to start with Mr. Brantley. Mr. Brantley, if you'll pass that microphone, Mr. Brantley.
Yes.
All right, question number one. Do you think this was a true depiction of the NWA story?
Well, when we talk about Straight Outta Compton, I will say, in my opinion, this is a great movie. It's a great movie, but as far as depiction of the true story, we know there's some discrepancies. One that points out is Arabian Prince is not in the movie as well. He was actually on the Straight Outta Compton album cover. And also, there was some things, of course, were flipped for Hollywood, for entertainment as well. A couple of scenes, of course, with the hotel scene with the group, and it was on tour. Ice Cube even said they added that in just for pure humor and just a little flip of situation. There was a similar situation happening with them, he said, but not exactly like that. Also, one that was a bit key that I saw also with Suge Knight, his situation with the Dr. Dre contract. A lot of people I've seen on Black TV and mixed interviews that I've watched said that couldn't have happened to Easy, Eric Wright, that the type of guy he was, it didn't go like that. So it was a lot more, but as far as the true depiction overall, no, I don't believe so. But as far as capturing the impact, it did a pretty good job.
Okay, before you give that away, Mr. Brantley, can you tell the audience who the Arabian Prince is?
Okay, Arabian Prince, he is one of the original members of the group. He actually was actually there before the DLC came with the group. He was before the DLC, and he actually was involved in the first demos that they had as well. And we actually see a track on Straight Outta Compton called Something to Dance To. He was actually involved with that track. You can actually go see the interview on Vlad TV, and he was on that track, and I believe he said he was around when they had the demo to Dope Man, the original demo, and he left right on the cusp of that album being finished. He left on the cusp due to money issues with Jerry Heller. But that's what Arabian Prince is in short. Actually, he's on the cover of Straight Outta Compton.
Okay, our next question is for Ms. Kaysen. What character in the movie deserved more of a pivotal role?
only because I'm a huge fan of Ice Cube, but he did have a major impact in the group as far as his rap lyrics and his motivation towards the group. But I think he had the most pivotal role, Ice Cube.
All right, Professor Andre.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that the NWA created more violence in America with their music?
The short answer to that would be no. I mean, this is America. I mean, we'd be hard pressed to find another place more violent than America historically. We start to talk about colonialism. We start to talk about the slickness of American violence. And so no, rap music often has been one of the, as Ngozi pointed out, one of the places people point to as violent, but it cannot make America more violent. I mean, what is more violent than 400 and something years of chattel slavery? I mean, what is more violent than the way that women are treated in America? What is more violent than the way that children are beaten and excused just because, they're not doing what they're told? So violence is embedded in American culture, television, whether it's every facet of America has some violence. And so no, simple answer is no for me.
Okay. We'll pass the mic down to Mr. Morris. All right. Why do you feel that the beef between Eazy-E and Dr. Dre was not showcased in this movie?
I think you gotta ask Dr. Dre that one, but I honestly don't know. They might have not had enough time to film, because the movie was about 2.5 hours long, right? Maybe they didn't want to make it longer possibly, but that was a real big moment in hip hop when they started beefing and everything. They were going back to back for a long time. And it just simply wasn't showcased. I think they were trying to show Dr. Dre in a more heroic role than he was, because of a lot of stuff that they took out with him when he beating on women and things like that.
Right.
So they might have been trying to showcase NWA in a different light than being, is what they like to call themselves, the world's most dangerous group, but instead of like these figures towards the black rights, well, not the black rights movement, but getting things to move a lot more frequently in the black community with that music.
Okay, you give it to Ms. Desiree. Ms. Desiree, what key components of the movie do you think are missing?
In my personal opinion, I believe they focused too much on Eazy-E, and I felt like the movie was supposed to be about NWA as a whole, and it kind of seemed more like a biography of his life, and then it kind of went down to Dr. Dre. They focused on him a lot too, as opposed to what happened to every member of the group equally.
Okay. You pass the mic to Ms. Sims. Do you think that each actor truly embodied the personality of their character in the movie?
I can't really say yes because I don't know the true characters personally, but I believe they did pick really good characters for each role.
All right, Mr. Morris. So mic too far. Do you feel that MC Ren and DJ Yellow were put on the back burner purposely because they did not have a big career after NWA?
Honestly, I don't know, but with certain things I've seen on TV, like the behind the scenes action and things like that, they seem pretty happy with the filmmaking and how the film came out. I don't think they were too upset about how they weren't given this shine, because I mean, Yellow was kind of just a DJ, and Ren was. I haven't heard Yellow rap before.
He was a producer. He was pretty important.
But I'm not saying just
What do you mean by just the DJ though?
Like he DJed, he kind of gave him, okay, he produced the beats for him and stuff like that. It helped with that, but he was more so the man that just made the music flow, kind of.
More like a Little John?
No, I'm not gonna say Lil Jon. He was like more behind the scenes work, really. And MC Ren, He wasn't the strongest lyricist in the group, or the strongest rapper.
You got bored, man.
He wasn't.
Have you heard 100 Miles and Running?
He wasn't the strongest rapper in that group.
No,
That's a
but
song.
Eazy-E.
That's one song. No, Eazy-E didn't write
He
the
was,
raps.
he was a key writer, though. He was a key
Ice
writer.
Cube was the rapper. Yeah, Ice Cube was the rapper.
Once he left, it was a DLC and ran.
Yeah. Nah, I don't count. I'm counting NWA with everybody in it. I'm not counting NWA when Ice Cube left. That's what I'm counting. That's the
So when
important
Ice
to me.
Cube left, it's no more NWA.
No, it's not. That's not NWA no more.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
It's not.
In your chest.
Okay, pass the mic down,
So who?
Mr. Holland. How do you think this movie will impact future and upcoming artists in the music industry?
Well, it's gonna really teach them a lesson, because watching that movie, you watch them go from just doing little gigs, $50 here, $50 there, and then moving on to world tours and just meeting everybody, and eventually, Easy met the president. So it's just like, nothing's gonna come easy. So they can really just look and see it was like, all right, well, I'm struggling. They struggle too. They're one of the biggest groups out there at the time. So it's not my timing. I just gotta keep grinding and keep going. Another lesson you'll learn about watching the movie is be educated on what you're signing off to. Because these record labels would offering them a stake, not knowing that they're signing off owning the factory. Like they were getting, money here, but it was chump change compared to where the money was supposed to be on. Because eventually all that fell through, and everybody eventually had problems. The money was broken up.
Okay. And pass it down to Professor Andre.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Professor Andre, what do you think of the response from the NWA to police brutality going on at that time?
Well, it's probably the biggest thing for me is that, and I don't want to I just can't really overlook what Mr. Marks was saying or Khalil was saying either. And so I'll touch on that, but I also want to I'll touch on the police brutality, but I also want to touch on that. For me, growing up, I never really thought I would live past 25. And I don't know why the hell I ever thought this, but it was a predominant thought in my life until I turned 25. And when I turned 25, I was like, what the fuck? What do I do after this? I thought I was supposed to be out. And so I can only assume that running the streets of New Jersey, I can only assume growing up half in the South, half in the North, and exposure, that somewhere along then, police brutality, violence seeped into my mind. I do remember one particular time, my friends and I were at a convenience store, this was in Florida, and we got pulled over by some officers. It happened to be raining outside, and the officer asked us to get out of the car and get on the ground. And I said, no, I'm not getting in the puddle of water, sir. He was like, yes, you are. I was like, no, I'm not. And so we go back and forth, and I agree to go in front of the store and get on my knees. And so police brutality is very serious for black men, has always been. And so to come out and make a declaration like F the police, and consistently talk about that experience becomes something that the world needs to see. And so their response creates an environment for Tupac to come along and say, holla if you hear me. It opens the door for others to articulate that. Now, we remember Common does say, Common's beef with NWA, he figures that it takes it too far, right? And he says that in his verse, he says that it went to California and he put her in the book, right? This ideal of saying that it exposes some things. But what NWA really does with their voice, it brings to life the way that what life is like in California, what life is like in Compton, what life is like in a black community. And so whether we like the violence that we hear, whether we like the lyrics that we hear or not, there's no wondering how we get Sandra Bullock. There's no wondering how we get Trayvon Martin. There's no wondering how we get all of these black and brown bodies that have consistently been killed and annihilated by those that are supposed to protect us. And so in that kind of way, what is going on with NWA, whether we like the sexuality, whether we like the misogynistic tones of things, whether we like the confusion between the whole group, that particular voice on police brutality is something comparable to what Stop the Violence was
when it came out. In retrospect, it is speaking to this moment where black men are, again, Reginald didn't happens then, right? OJ is going on then. All those things that are going on is shaping. And so we get these young black men that are frustrated, misogynistic for me for sure, but the frustration does come out. The biggest thing is that when we're looking now at a film like this, and we're looking at it from this moment, we really can't appreciate what they're offering, because that voice was not something that was there then, in the way that NWA said it. Others had mentioned it, but to be so bold as to actually say, you know, it takes the Black Panthers to that next level, right? And I'll close out here. I was in a convenience store about 2, maybe 3 weeks ago. It was about, and I told this story to my students, and so before your mind jumped in, it was about 2 or 3 in the morning. It's like, well, Professor OJ, what the hell are you doing at a convenience store at 2 or 3 in the morning? I'm like, I'm a grown ass man. Convenience store. And so I walked by these officers, and it's 3 officers, a white female officer, 2 black male officers. And so the black male officer is talking, I guess the one that is more boisterous is talking. And the white officer, she's there, she's just smiling. So he says, well, you could tell a black guy that grew up around white people because he talks white. Okay. Well, you can tell a white guy that grew up around black people because he talks black. And they continue to go on. And so I'm looking for what I'm looking for, la, 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 in my own world. I find it. And then I walk by. And then Andre has a conversation with the dude inside of me and says, you know you can't let this go, right? And so I say to him, sir, what you said was problematic. And he again says, well, in my line of work, I have to use this kind of psychology because people that I encounter. And so in short, we have an exchange. And my point is that there's a certain mentality that officers have, and they've had it for a long time. And so what we get from NWA with this long answer line is just that, a view of America's training of police officers when it comes to black males.
So you would have had the same response that they had in Detroit?
The same response in the film?
In the film.
You mean when they told them not to say it and they did?
Yes.
Yes. Andre, yes. Only because, you know, and that's the thing, me talking to those officers, the one officer was acting like I couldn't talk. He didn't understand how I was talking to him this way. My thing is, we're human beings. And so as long as I don't disrespect you, as a man, I can say whatever I want to you. And so his only way to cop out of the conversation, he said, well, everything is problematic. I said, well, tell me this, do you believe in God? He said, yes. I said, is God problematic? No. I was like, oh, that argument is dead, huh? Right? And so he kept saying problematic, but that's what the Panthers were trying to show us. We have rights, inalienable rights that were given to us by our Creator, by the universe, and we can articulate ourselves because we live in America. So, yes, sir.
Okay. I'll pass it all the way down to Mrs. Sims. All right, Ms. Sims. Do you think that O'Shea Jackson Jr. was deserving of the role of his father?
Yes, definitely. He looked just like him, and and based off other characters and seeing Ice Cube do interviews or in social on videos, I would imagine that's how he really acts in real life and in movies. So, what better person to represent Ice Cube than his own son?
Maybe it's like earned it.
He did.
He was like earned it for like 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he earned it, and he did really well.
I give it the best to Ms. Weston. Ms. Weston, could the story of Death Row have been more prominent in the movie?
I don't really think they should have been. I know, they did have interactions, but the movie was not about them. So I think their role was just enough, and it was good where it was.
Okay. Audience, I want to remind everybody to please write your questions down on those sheets of paper that I have. Ms. LaDonna will be walking around, taking those questions up and bringing them to the front. And we're going to go to Mr. Halton. How do you think this movie will impact future? No, I got that one already. Sorry. Mr. Halton, do you feel that hip-hop / rap artists, do you feel that and hip-hop / rap artists can have the same impact as the NWA had in the 90s? If so, boom.
You know what? I do, actually. Because what NWA really showed us was don't let them censor you. Say what you have to say, and they'll take it how they take it regardless. Because your fans that brought you there, they have your back, they support you. Because even when they had a little riot at the concert, it wasn't really even a riot. They said what they needed to say, and everybody reacted how they want to. It was entertainment. They enjoyed it. And the artist, I think, right now, saying what he has to say unapologetically is Kendrick Lamar. How to Pimp a Butterfly that was amazing. And his performance at the Grammys, unapologetic, beautiful.
Hey, Ms. Casey. Ms. Casey, in the movie, why do you think that Eazy-E trusted Jerry Heller so easily?
I would say that Eazy-E kind of reminds me of me as far as trusting people and loyalty. When he first got into the game, the rap game, he needed someone who he could trust, and Jerry was the first person who thought was trustworthy, but in reality, Jerry really just told him lies. So I just think he was in denial and didn't want to believe that Jerry was actually playing him. That's how I feel about it.
Okay. Do you think that there was do you think that he did that because of the race of Jerry? Or do you think he would, if Jerry would have been a black man, do you think he would have still trusted him so easily?
I think the race probably does play a part in his decision. And if Jerry was black, he probably would have trusted him, but not as much as, Jerry being white.
Why is that?
I guess maybe he probably looked at the professionalism, I guess. I don't
Go ahead, Ms. Hudson.
You want to?
Yeah, all right. As far as trusting him, Jerry to him, looked like he was really qualified to manage him. He came in and approached him. He was like, he boosted his head a lot, saying that you have a unique voice. You're the voice of the group. You're this, you're that. So of course, if somebody is boosting you up that way, it's like, oh yeah, you're really great. Anybody else who's telling you anything different is really against you. And now Jerry played that. Jerry was, when Q wanted to get his own money and speak to Jerry was like, hey, he's a liability. Basically turned him against his friend. And it took him years and years to finally figure out. It took him to see it in the books when his girlfriend looked through the book and said, hey, Jerry was taking his money. And all he did was confront him. He was like, I thought we were cool. I thought we were friends. I trusted you. He started to, in the movie, he looked back reflectingly, like maybe Cube was right. Maybe we need to get this NWA thing back together. But he trusted Jerry just because Jerry put on the mask of the professional. Well, I know this industry. I know I can get you here. I can get you there. And it didn't help that Jerry actually pulled through with some of his promises. So of course, if he pulled through with a few promises, he's a man of his word. Because he's a man of his word, I'm gonna trust what he has to say about the business. We're colleagues. We came in this together. How am I supposed to know that you know what you're doing if I don't know what I'm doing? This is somebody who's been in the business. He's been doing this. He's been doing that. He's got us here. He repeatedly stated that Jerry got us here. Jerry got us here. Jerry got us here. Well, it wasn't really Jerry. It was his own. It was of their own devices. But he believed in Jerry.
Okay, we'll pass the mic to Mr. Brandon. Did you have a response to that before I ask you a question, Mr. Brandon?
One thing with Jerry and Eazy's relationship, from the very beginning, you see Jerry Heller, he mentions things that he's done. I work with Elton John, I work with Otis Redding, Eazy throws back at him how he worked with anybody else this decade. And when he throws that back at him, then Jerry, he kind of tightens his grip a little bit and says, well, they're not gonna listen to you if I don't help you, basically. They're not gonna listen to you. The business is this way, and you need me to help you. And he does this again later on when Easy is ready to be done with Jerry. And he's, I know what's right for this company, and yada, 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 yada. Well, he's feeding him a mindset where it's kind of the reason why we don't have a lot of black faces in Hollywood entertainment when it comes to ownership. When it comes to ownership, it's that mindset of, well, I need the white man to do this. When it's opposed to the self-sufficient mind state that Dre was feeding them in the beginning. You know, you can do this, you can do that. And it's the element of not knowing something that can hinder a little bit, and the reluctancy to look for the information as opposed to having someone help you through, and they know the information already. I just have them do it, and I don't have to do the hard work or looking up or trying to find out how to do it. So I think that was the main element that really hurt from the beginning. And Jerry did mention loyalty as well. Jerry actually fed that to him. He said, you know, there comes sometimes you gotta trust somebody. He even said that in the movie as well. So Jerry fed that mindset to him as, you need me, and we're gonna do this together, as opposed to you can do it. Like really, like he was trying to sound like he wanted to. You can do it on your own. He was like, yeah, you can do it on your own if I'm next to you. So, but you can answer another question though.
Okay. All right, next question for you, Mr. Bradley. How did the NWA change the landscape of hip hop?
First with NWA, you get a more provocative message. You get a straight to the point. This is it. This is in your face. And another thing with it established a region. It established a region in a very potent way. Listening to Straight Outta Compton is like going in a lowrider around Compton for a day, or being in a drive-by for a whole day. The whole day is on 100. Whole day is on 100. You know, it's a sunny day in LA, and you're driving through. The Chronic is the same way, but it's a different field. Straight Outta Compton is running from the police. We bumping into girls. We getting shot at. Police, they stop us. It A-ball. So Straight Outta Compton is like a whole trip through LA. It's just the whole day is on 100. It's like you're running the whole time. Like it's like 100 miles of running. That's how it is. And they actually introduced that to a region. They actually put a poster of LA up on the wall. And you got to think at the same time, a lot of artists are focused on, can I get radio play? I can't talk a certain way on this record. I can't do this. I can't do that. If I just clean up like this, I can be fine for radio. I really like this on this side, but I have to put this image right here. I got to keep that to the side a little bit, just show a little bit, make it look tough, you know, like I'm not to be messed with, but not too much. And also NWA, they did introduce the gangster persona more of a poet way. The root circle was already there with Schoolie D already, but they, and Ice-T as well, 6 in the Morning is basically the same as Boys in the Hood. It's the same way. It's like a mirror. Those are mirror songs. Boys in the Hood got a little better beat to it, but they introduced that gangster persona to the mainstream of hip hop. To the mainstream, it was already there, but it was in like a low paradigm right at the moment. You had Boogie Down Productions as well. So the elements were there, but they just ignited it and put it in the forefront. And after that, you have a burst of a bunch of gangster rap groups. Well, I was like gangster. They call it reality rap, but we'll say groups with the gangster persona.
Okay, and this is a question for the entire panel. Were any of you actual NWA fans before the movie came out?
Yeah.
One, yes.
I was-
Anybody else? Was
I was
this
Ice
for the
Cube
entire
fan.
panel?
I was an Ice Cube fan, really.
He was an Ice Cube fan.
Yeah.
So only one person was really a,
I was an Ice Cube fan.
Say that one time.
But
Okay.
The Ice
What's the
Cube
question?
or Lynch Mob really knew this Ice Cube.
You talking about?
I mean, like,
Oh,
you
you talking
about-
you talking about Jack?
If you didn't see early Ice Cube, you're not really going to enjoy the movie Ice Cube. The movie Ice Cube is hilarious. He's still a tough guy trying to play a soft role. And he's just always so angry. So you just look and you're like, I know you want to yell at him. And then, 21 Jump Street, he was like, I'm the angry black captain. He was like, yeah, I can see him playing that role. And he played it real well. Seeing softer movies like Are We There Yet, Are We Done Yet? It's like, it's not really you, but I find it funny that you're trying this.
But I have a different response. I don't know who the real Ice Cube is. That's the response for me. I mean, I'm not of the ilk that, I remember hip hop when hip hop was about lyrics and about metaphors and about creating images. And so one could be Jack the Rapper, but that don't mean nobody going around jacking nobody, robbing nobody, killing nobody. It was just persona, you don't want to bother me. I don't know who Ice Cube is. I mean, Gorillas in the Mist, Lynch Mob, I like that. America's Most Wanted, I like that. I like the joint lethal injection, I like that. The thing about it is Cube got a voice, and Cube is a real smart dude. But I also think Cube is a much better actor than we understand. I don't know that I ever bought Ice Cube being hard. Now Dub C, Mac 10, hard. Cube, I'm not so sure, because how do we go from America's Most Wanted all the way to Are We There Yet? That's not a binary, that's a hell of an extreme. One doesn't pull that off like, I'm gonna go from being hard, mad face, to playing with some kids and writing Friday, right? And so I dug Cube though, because what I liked about Cube, he was the one that, and if you watch the movie, and again, I resisted watching the movie until I was forced to watch the movie, because they said they wanted to watch the movie. I was never gonna watch this movie. But if you saw, there was a picture of Minister Farrakhan there on the screen. And what I liked about Cube was that he played in one of his albums, he was heavy on Khalid Muhammad. He even had a track called Cave Woman. And that track for me was something, it was a statement that he was making. But, say that again?
That's the album Predator.
Yes. But if we know it or not, he also had Cam, and him and Cam fell out about this because at one point, Ice Cube was quoting the Nation of Islam. I never believed that he was Fruit, but he masqueraded like he was Fruit because that what was popular at the time. So I like Ice Cube, but for me, Cube is just a capitalist. It's America. It ain't knocking the hustle. You know, Jay-Z says it ain't no knock the hustle. But I ain't sure that O'Shea Jackson is gonna ever put his hands on anybody in that kind of way. I mean, even I like Dr. Dre, but my problem with the movie, they ain't show Dr. Dre beating Michelle ass, which was factual, and so women are invisible in the text, and that's very, very problematic for me. But still, I like Ice Cube. I just don't think Cube is that dude that we think Ice Cube is, because a gangster gangsters don't dance. Gangsters don't make movies. Gangsters don't care nothing about the big screen. A gangster.
What about Snoop?
What, Snoop?
Snoop
ain't never been no gangster either. Whenever Snoop was a gangster. When?
That was a 20-year development though. That was a 20-year
Are we
development.
the same person?
It was 20-year development. So he just grew up and just got into that life.
20 years ain't just growing up. That's a long time.
How old are you, sir?
23.
All right.
Oh, look, yeah, I'm the same person. I'm he's all about Ice Cube. I like Ice Cube. I love the Predator album. Death Certificate, I love it. America's Most Wanted, I have it on repeat. I don't know how many times. It's not played what they hit for like so many times. Cause I just love the beat. The beat is so far. But Ice Cube, love it.
Okay.
And I didn't mean that in a bad way. I only meant that to say that you're right. It does take 20 years, but look what happens in the span of 20 years. And coming in the middle of something in 20 years, it's easy to say Ice Cube is this way now. And it's easy to say, well, it took him 20 years to get there, but what they show us in the film, that he's writing Friday during that time. So that tells me if he was writing Friday during that time, then how does one go from being this guy that's writing about certain things that are gangster and then evolve into writing this movie and starting to think about actually being a movie maker, unless he is already a creative mind that is more of a writer than more of a thug. And a writer can write about anything. My body of work from 20 years is vast. Some of the poems I write, they have nothing to do with my life. And that's fine, because that's the way that the mind works. All I'm saying for me, Q is just a creative dude. And he rides the horse whichever direction it's going at, whatever speed the horse goes to get to the designation that he's trying to get to. That's all.
Okay. And I know I have another question for you, Professor Andre, from the audience.
Yes, sir.
All right. Which hip-hop/rap message do you feel had the bigger impact on American society? The positive pro-black vibes of the Northeast, or the negative, uncensored vibes of the West?
Well, I don't like the dichotomy thing. I don't like to ask the question. I don't like the dichotomy because we presuppose that negative is West, and this is like a common thing, and like East is best. That was your question?
Yes, I wanted to explain. I put negative in
Quotations.
yeah, like negative. They were perceived as negative.
Right.
Not negative.
Well, good. I don't know. I mean, because for me, I like someone like Dana Dane. But Dana Dane, they never, he used something like tramp. Like tramp was like hope, right? And so I found that to be equally as problematic. And I judge it by how we treat those that are lesser. How do we talk about women? How do we talk about children? Someone can say, I'll kill you. In Shakespearean language, kill means to make love. So you say, I'm gonna kill you. It depends on when we're speaking, when we're talking. And so just because someone says, I'm going to kill you, I don't take it like, oh, it's so violent. I mean, we watch movies where they talk about kill. And so I don't know that one was worse than the other. I think they're different. And as someone that ran the streets in the concrete jungle, it's a kind of different kind of violence. The thing is that we do get the development of Bloods and Crips and gangs and things like that, but we forget the reason that hip hop started was because in the Bronx, there were gangs. And the black and brown people were trying to get away from the gangs. And so we're talking about the same thing. Both are equally violent because they're trying to, someone like Smith & Wesson named themselves Smith & Wesson. Those are guns. That's violent. I mean, so there was and if there was no violence in the West, then there wouldn't be a track self-destruction, right? And so we have to be honest about it, is that both places reflect America, and they're both trying to deal with the violence. There's a paradigm that I teach from, it's the Black Studies paradigm, and it asks a question: what accounts for the considerable amount of violence that Europeans have cast against non-European people? And so we're talking about responding to, and so these young people are responding to the violence that has been given to them. And I don't buy into the argument that hip hop on either coast is violent in a way that is any different than America. America, as I said in the beginning, is a violent place. And we sit here in this fine room because of the violence. Every time I ride and leave this town, about a group of students and I, two students, Kiara Lawrence and Donis, who spoke this morning, we went to Columbus and we were riding together. I've only been to Columbus once. And I just kept saying to them, look at all this stolen land. I mean, farm after farm after farm. These are the land of the indigenous people, not of Southern whites. But Southern whites own all this field, all these cotton fields, all these tobacco fields, all these pecan orchards. And so violence is America. And so it's what and what for me. One just has less of a filter, right? And that's the thing. The West, the East Coast, Northeast has a filter because it's more so about metaphors because they were in gangs and they tried to move out. West Coast is moving into gangs and trying to figure out how to navigate. So it's what they see.
Next question is for Mr. Morris. We'll pass the mic on down. And if we have any more questions from the audience, please pass them around and she will take them up. All right. Where would hip hop be without the NWA?
Where would it be? At the bottom.
Honestly, I have no clue. Where would it be? That's a very vague question. Because there was a lot of people that kind of had the same impact as they did with Ice Cube, not Ice Cube, but Ice-T being the first rapper with the Brim Advisory sticker. So that was real big at that time. And, okay, they had F the Police, and they kind of looked like the soundtrack to Los Angeles at the time. So maybe, if it weren't for them, maybe it wouldn't be such a calling for people to stand up for what they felt was wrong at that time, maybe. That's what I feel.
Okay, Ms. Brandon.
With no NWA, you got no Snoop, you got no Dash, you got no Nate Dogg, you got no Corrupt, you have the whole Death Row movement is gone. You have no Dre, which means might not have Eminem, might not have 50 Cent.
That would be a bad one.
No Tupac.
It's a lot.
That's a lot.
Okay.
A lot of people came from that tree of NWA. NWA. Now, if we're just talking in context of like just the music, we probably don't have that approach to the music at that time. It would probably come from another channel. It would have to come from another channel because the roots were there already. It just was who's gonna be daring enough to take that stand, and they just happened to take that stand. They just took that letter and went with it. So I think we still get where we at, but we get where we at a slower pace. We get where we at a slower pace. It's going to be less willing to express how it really feels at a later time.
Okay, Ms. Wesley.
I just wanted to say that some things in life are just inevitable, and at some point, even without NWA, somebody was going to step up and acknowledge the violence. So where there was them, it was going to be someone because it wasn't going to keep being ignored. So I think we really would be in the same place. Somebody was going to get the job done. Just like now, like it kind of died down, but it's coming back to life. It's happening all over again, and people are starting to acknowledge the violence.
I'm just gonna say, I wouldn't say same, but I say similar. You can't really, you take them out, you're changing a whole lot of lives in that one instant. So it wouldn't be exactly how it is today, maybe some would have just turned out different. Maybe another undiscovered artist would have just popped up and been like, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, and I do understand what we're saying here, but it would be similar to saying that, and I don't say this in an egotistical way, right? Is that in a way that, me coming here, I never had aspirations to do such, right? And so there wouldn't be this space, we wouldn't be having this conversation if I were not here. And so we can never, but I don't represent myself, I represent something else, a lot of other people. And in that same way, NWA represents a lot of other people. And we can't negate that ideal that someone will come along. Fact of the matter is, someone might never come along. Some things never come along. Some people never say anything because there are repercussions. And so even though I have my problems with Ice Cube and Dr. Dre as this narrative that they try to create NWA as, I'm not sure. And as Jeremy said, we would not have gotten, it is clear to me, we would not have gotten Tupac in the way that we got Tupac. I have no problem with that part though, only because I think once Tupac goes to death row, Tupac is dead. And I don't mean physically, he is dead physically, but creatively he's dead. There's some things that happens to him but in that kind of way, NWA creates a space, as I said earlier, for Holly, if you hear me. They build off of what Tupac does and Tupac lives, but we can't negate that. It's like, a mother and a father. We can have this argument all we want to. Well, if I had different parents, well, if you had different parents, you wouldn't be you. And so without NWA, West Coast would be West Coast. And clearly Dub C would have never rapped. And we never would have understood the Crip Walk, which, whether you can do it or not, whether you're gang affiliated or not, that Crip Walk is nice.
All right. And this question right here is for the entire panel. Should Straight Outta Compton have been nominated for Best Picture?
Yeah.
Or why do you think that they were snubbed?
Why do I think that? It was a lot of black films snubbed. Like, I feel Creed should have been nominated. as long as
Specifically
it-
NWA does.
It's specifically NWA. Specifically NWA because, I mean, it's a story that's been told multiple times, but it gave a different visual appeal to it, though they did take out a lot of things that were needed to be, like, key components in it. And mainly because, I guess it was, usually when black people get nominated for films, it's usually like they're seen in a lesser light, or they playing a slave role or something like that. And these were people kind of like standing up for themselves, I feel, so they didn't really get that shine that they needed. And they didn't get nominated based on that.
Say no. Just because I know they left some things out. Feel like if they really wanted to tell their story and tell it the way it was supposed to be, an award-winning story, is let them know everything, put everything out there, the tragedy, losing everything, just not, don't try to build it up in this movie, make yourself look like a hero, make yourself look like you didn't do nothing wrong. A little, car chase scene where he just, Death Row's doing so many different things, let me run out of here and speed off. Like, I just didn't feel that. In fact, that was one part of the movie I just sat there, was like, he got arrested, but I don't think this is what happened before he ran out. Like, it just made it seem like he was justifying things. And, in the audience, I'm just like, all right, this is a good movie and all, but this is not real. You're not being real with it. If you were being real with it, this is how you win the war, is just air everything out. Like, 12 Years a Slave, we nominated for slave movies. That's a real hard thing to watch. They ain't sugarcoating nothing. If they ain't sugarcoated, I'd probably change my answer to yes. But it was just too much. If I can sit there and pick out and like, all right, you left this out.
What about
okay.
Monsters Ball then? Halle Berry didn't get nominated until she either showed a movie or she had sex with Billy Bob.
You're talking about NWA. There you go with the tangent.
No, that's the same thing.
But for me, it's about an aesthetics here. What are the aesthetics that we judge film off of, and who holds that aesthetic? It can't come down. Now, I do have some problems with the film, and again, I wouldn't watch it unless y'all hadn't said we was gonna watch it. Let me make that clear again. However, we can't say simply, because they left this out or it's too creative. We watch so many movies that are about nothing, that are just simply from the mind of some person, and those are the ones that make the list. The question is aesthetic. Now, is it the best film we ever seen? Answer to that is no. But what it does offer to the table, everybody went out to see it, and it made Hollywood some money, and they want to try and make another one. And so the question will be, Friday is a great movie, right? But it's not going to be one of those that makes that cut. And this is a debate that we're going to have forever, because the simple fact of the matter is, until non-white people get a space where they can appreciate themselves on their own aesthetics, they're going to keep getting left out, just like the kid whose house is across the street from the basketball court, and when you block his shot or break his ankles, he's going to take his ball and go home. So Hollywood is never going to allow you to go but so far, because if they do, then everybody else going to feel like they could get at the table, right? And so that's the thing for me. I do agree with you that too much was left out, but there's no one in the room that is 100% transparent. No one in the room is going to lay everything on the line. And so if laying everything on the line is the criteria for what we're going to say is great, then nobody in this room will ever be great. And that's a lot.
Autobiography. I agree with it did make a lot of money. It did, people was like, we're going to make a sequel and everything. But if that was the case, making a sequel, Saw has 7 sequels. Where's their Academy Award? I still think that when you promise me an autobiography, let me tell you the story of NWA. Let me hear the story of NWA, and let me translate it. Let me feel how I want to feel with everything in there, instead of, I kind of don't want to look like when Icy was getting jumped in the movie. I don't want to look like a punk. Someone hit that dude that took me off the elevator, and then the brawl happens, and then everything disappears.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I agree with you. I'm just saying the aesthetics and the value that we look at, the gauge that we have, sometimes that's the thing. I agree with you.
All right, I'd like to thank the panelists